Welcome into this week in Missouri Politics Daily Update. Today is a special treat for us on the good side of the state, that being on the west side. I am joined today by two of my personal good friends from the west side of the state, that being Representatives Mike Steinmeier, who I've been told looks like the Harry Truman's long-lost brother, and Representative Will Jobe. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Well, where are you from?
I'm from Independence.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you for
You
having
better
me.
represent too. That's right.
We're also joined by Truman, of course.
Well, give him heck, Harry. That's right.
Session's been very interesting. You guys are freshmen this year, so you both are coming into this kind of new. Obviously kind of new, but Mike before did you did city council in Independence,
Yeah.
and before you did some law work, correct? So what is it like coming in? You guys are freshman reps on opposite side of the aisle, so obviously you're going to have a bit different experiences when it comes to caucuses or what your guys' policy agendas might be. But what's that like? I'll start with you, Mike.
With me?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, it's a learning curve. I mean, local government is it's a different animal.
Yeah.
Compared to the state. Of course, you're dealing with a lot more personalities, where we only had 7, in Independence.
They
but
could
they
be
were
pretty big
colorful. Yeah, they
personalities.
were good. I mean, it was fun. But I'm grateful for that experience, because you don't know till you get here, and then what you need to learn, and just trying to stay out of the way of sometimes yourself and sometimes of folks that are working hard to get some things done. So just finding that rhythm and learn every day, and I think that that's been my motivation for this first part of the session. So
What about you, Will?
Yeah, it's a very steep learning curve. I wish I had some of the experience Mike did. He's got a lot of years of knowing kind of how those things work behind the scenes that I think some of us that jump right into politics for the first time maybe don't understand before we get here.
Yeah.
That it's nothing is that as simple as you think it is when you're running.
Yeah.
You never get to vote on one thing. It's all a analysis of some things you like, some things you don't, and what you want to prioritize, and how you can do the best for your constituents and actually get
I think
something
Mike
done.
Moon would love to have a conversation about voting on one thing. I think that's a topic he enjoys talking about.
Yeah, he does, and I can appreciate that. It would be very nice if we could just do up or down votes on one issue at a time. Unfortunately, given the pace in the House, I don't think we have time for that unless we want to be a year-round session.
Yeah.
What a lot of people told me before I got down here, and I've found out it's even more true, is that it's really about relationships, and it's about what you do when you're not on the floor. It's about being able to work with people from all parts of that building, and try to get good things done for the people that you represent. That in the end, I mean, we'll say lots of things on the floor, and probably say lots of things to each other on the floor, but really we're all just there to try and get good things for our community, and if we can bridge that gap, then we can actually get some stuff done.
Yeah. Well, you guys, I think you were really fortunate, both of you, to come in with a great freshman class. Brandon Phelps, who replaced Dan Houks in Warrensburg. On the Democrat side, Ray Reed, who came in, who's I believe is a freshman.
He is.
I was going to say, he's in my generation, so
like
it would be, yeah. Ray Reed, who came in on the Democrat side. You guys really do have a good, fresh-faced group of people who, from what I've been seeing, are really great at getting into rooms and talking to people and trying to find ways to get things done for their constituents. And so I think you guys were very fortunate to come in with this class. I think that a lot of you guys in the freshman class, I would not be surprised, are going to go very far in your careers. And I would say that about you too. I think you guys, from what I've seen so far, I think you guys would go very far in your careers and are going to be successful in whatever you do. But I think just from watching the House this year, just from being in the building this year, I think you guys are also very lucky to not have been in the legislature for the last 4 years. Probably longer than that, but especially dealing with how things were in the Senate, I think you were very fortunate to come in with a group that actually wants to do stuff. But have you guys noticed anything? Has it been different for you guys? Obviously it's coming in. You guys have a different Senate than there was last time. But do you think there's been do you feel like for some of your colleagues that have been there a bit longer, do you sense some sort of change in the atmosphere there?
I think so. I mean, we talk about, just how good it is to have a functioning Senate.
Yeah.
And I think that they've made that a priority to do the work that's needed.
Yeah.
And so I can say that I'm impressed, because that was a lot of my door conversations when we were knocking doors. And people were frustrated that nothing was getting done. It was getting stifled. And it was primarily the Senate side that they were having problems with. And so it made it easier to talk about coming in. You're going to have a new governor, new lieutenant governor. You're just going to have a whole new.
And that kind of stuff, the Senate not functioning, really does affect districts like both of yours. Both of your districts have a lot of blue collar, working class people who depend on a lot of the stuff that the state government can provide.
Absolutely.
And so I could imagine there's a lot of people in those districts who would be very upset that things aren't working the way that they should be. Yeah. But we'll get into some fun Jackson County stuff. So obviously the big thing right now in Jackson County, if you're focused on political stuff, it's property taxes, and if you're focused on everything else, it's usually the Chiefs and Royals deal.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of start with property taxes. For as long as I've known, property taxes seem to be a unique issue for Jackson County. Obviously, there's some assessment difficulties there. What do you guys hear when you were campaigning? What were you hearing in the doorstep? I'll start with you, Will.
Yeah, that was the number one issue. I almost every door, we would have a conversation about property taxes, and also during the campaign. I mean, we were in the middle of the lawsuit and the state tax commission order and all the various things and the counter lawsuit, and people are frustrated by the inability of a group of supposed adults to figure out an answer.
Yeah.
And really just everybody seemed like they're dug in and just want to fight it out and not ever get to a solution that actually helps people.
Yeah.
I'm confident and hopeful that in this session we've got a lot of good representation from Jackson County in the House and in the Senate, and it's been a priority for all of us, to do something and to get actual things on the books and in law to fix that issue. I think we had legislation to make our county assessor an elected position. I think most of the representatives in Jackson County all filed that bill.
Now, do you think ultimately, I've heard some people say that ultimately that may not change things. Do you disagree or agree? Would you say that an elected county official for the assessor would change how the assessment process works?
Well, I think when you change the dynamic of that position, right, and now it's not the assessor being employed by the executive, right? Now you've got an assessor who's accountable to the voters that put them in there. But that whole issue, it's a glaring example of how bad a broken government can be.
Yeah.
It is so frustrating, and honestly, it is a local issue. But because it can't be resolved locally, it's coming to the state, and there are people on, probably both sides of the aisle that believe that it should not be here. It needs to be dealt with back home, and until that pressure is applied in that way, they're going to look to us to try to resolve it, and that puts us in a difficult situation too, because local matters should be dealt with by the local elected officials, and until that pressure is applied to them or that understanding gets to them, then we're kind of being forced to deal with it. So yeah.
I haven't checked. Do either of you guys have any property tax stuff going on in terms of bills that you guys are keeping track of?
Personally?
Yeah, personally.
Yes. So, I'm following the progress on all of those fronts. I filed the elected county assessor bill. I filed a bill to impose. It's not a cap on overall assessments, but it's basically a throttle on how quickly they can raise.
Yeah.
And there's a number of us on both sides of the aisle that have filed versions of that as well.
Yeah. That seems to be a pretty bipartisan thing for the Jackson County reps, is whether you're Democrat or Republican, you want to deal. You're both for.
Well, we're all hearing the same thing, so
Yeah.
we should work together on it. I've not filed anything in terms of the property tax because there were so many already.
That's fair.
And rather than just stack them up and see who's got the best one, I wanted to see which one gets the most traction, and then we can discuss what will work, what may not work, and so I didn't want to pile on.
No, it seems like if there's already like three of the same sort of bill floating around, why add a fourth when you can add another bill that you think would be very useful?
Yeah.
And so you definitely do see that a lot in the House.
Yeah.
Especially as me and Kelton covered a while back. If you're Representative Scott Cupps, you have the same. You and Bishop Davidson will have the same bills, which is pretty interesting. But another big thing that's obviously popping up, and this kind of came up towards the end of last session, was the Royals and Chiefs deal. So right now, from what I'm hearing in the news, is that the Royals are considering options on both sides of the state, or both sides of the border. I'll just ask you this: do you think the Royals go to Kansas?
Well, if Kansas wants to sell their financial future with a bunch of star bonds, then if that's what they think is right, if that's going to entice that ownership group to make that decision. A part of me is just like, well, it won't take long. so we can see where it ends up. But again, it's a local issue.
Yeah, it is.
And it's got to be dealt with locally. And leveraging precious tax dollars that we're trying to cut and and reallocate into the departments that people depend on, and then having ownership groups coming and wanting, everybody wants something. That's my experience from budget. I'm everybody's best friend. They all want something, right? So I think that's going to be.
Do you think they would have gotten the money for a new stadium had they been to the World Series the year before?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think we've learned our lesson building stadiums that were beautiful and now are sitting quiet.
That's true.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense from my perspective.
Yeah.
So would it be good to build a new stadium in terms of jobs? Sure.
Yeah.
That put our people to work. I mean, our labor would love that. So.
I know the 3 Royals fans that exist out here would love a new Royal Stadium, but I also can't really see the justification for a new stadium downtown when we've been the way we have been over the last few years. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah. I would say I hope they don't go to Kansas. And to me, I think it's two things. It's a demonstration of the fact that we can't sit down and actually talk about a problem. But it's also an extension of the timing related to the property tax issue, with the feeling that among many people that our county is broken in that system.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you come up with a 3/8 cents tax to fund them staying and to build the new stadiums, I mean, the answer is no, because they feel like you're taking everything that they have already and they're not going to give you any more.
Yeah.
It's what I feel like we almost missed our window. But it's like there needs to be a discussion among everybody. Like, I mean, does Jackson County need to be the only taxing jurisdiction funding this project if we do it? No. I mean, there's Kansas City, there's Jackson County, there's surrounding areas that gain from the presence of our 2 professional teams that should all be at the table talking about what a solution is that spreads that burden around to everybody and actually keeps the teams there. And I wish we could have that, but
Yeah.
it doesn't
I
seem
don't
like
think
one.
it'll be as simple. We're packing up by.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there.
I'm seeing. I saw that they would have a decision maybe by June and July of this summer.
If they choose to do it, it's going to be they're going to be writing big checks.
Yeah.
And to get out of that agreement, and the damage they will do economically to our communities that we're from, Independence. I mean, they depend on those jobs.
Yeah.
There are people that depend on that work. It's not like, oh, I just want to be outside. Let's just, you know, they go there and they work hard. It's a tough job, but we need that economically.
Yeah.
And so they would. It's not just about moving a ball team. It's about losing a portion of our economic drivers.
Yeah.
And I guess the ownership group hasn't weighted that
Yeah.
properly.
Because I totally get where the Chiefs are coming from, where they really do need to redevelop that area because there's I think a bunch of like auto shops and stuff usually on that side of the highway, but on the other side you've got the rundown Cocoa Keys and the hotel that's gone. You have
Beautiful.
Oh, what was it? The burned out Waffle House. Well, is it Waffle House or Denny's or something like that?
I think it was a Denny's.
Yeah, that
Denny's,
caught
yeah.
fire, and so
Yeah.
that whole area does really like. I do understand the Chiefs from the pictures that I saw of what they want to do, and obviously pictures are one thing and reality is another, but. From looking at it, I do really like what they're thinking of creating like an actual entertainment sort of district there.
Yeah.
Because something really does need to happen in that area.
Well, that's Kansas City.
Yes,
So,
that's true.
Again, broken government, right? So that's sorry, Kansas City, but
Things used to really run better when Pendergast was here.
No.
It may be controversial to say that, but things were ran better when Pendergast was in charge.
Yeah,
So.
right, Harry. Yeah, he's smiling at that.
But obviously today is opening day for both the Royals and the Cardinals. And if you're going to the Cardinals game, while the crime bill was signed yesterday, that does not mean it's fully in effect yet. So please be careful on your way to the game. Speaking of the crime bill, it was signed yesterday.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that? Obviously, Will, you come from an interesting group of Democrats that voted for it. I guess maybe not fully for it, but in support of some measures or whatever. But I guess that's better for you to explain.
I mean, I voted for both parts, for the overall bill and for the emergency clause that you were talking about.
And we come from a unique area where Kansas City has been under state control for longer than I've been alive, I think. But what is your thoughts on that, Will?
I mean, so in terms of, I guess, so first off, you know, why I supported it was really a simple statement of listening to our debate and realistically, you know, when the police department, when the ethical society of policemen, you know, when everybody wanted this, you know, that, you know, was something I thought I needed to get behind. When it first came through the House, I actually voted against it, but that was because I had a little heartburn over the long list of things that were attached to it.
No, that is fair, yeah.
And to be honest with you, when it came back from the Senate, they were able to fix and clean up a lot of those issues.
Carla May was able to get the rioting clause off, which I remember that being a pretty big sticking issue for a lot of people.
Yeah, and so they made it a lot better, and I thought that we needed to at least some of us on our side honor that effort to come to the middle and meet an agreement by supporting that. And in the end, you know, as to the St. Louis question, you know, I mean, I'm going to be there to support our police officers, and that's what they were asking for. So
yeah. And like I said, we come from a very difficult area when it comes to policing. The Independence police officers are some of the hardest working people that I know, and that is an extremely difficult area to work in, especially because I mean, I grew up just a block or two away from the main square, and I can always count on there always being sirens going off at least maybe 5 times at night, whether it be ambulances or police and stuff. And it is a difficult area. So I think from where you come from in the state, that I think that makes total sense that you would want to give the St. Louis police as much support as you would give the Independence police officers. Again, it's an example of
kind of that broken government
Yep.
feel. And public safety is not something that you want to be the results of broken government, because it just makes it, people want to just feel safe. They want to be safe, feel safe in their homes or in their travels, just going around. And I was wrong, because I mean, the first time I was on with Scott, he asked if I thought they'd get it done, and I said I didn't think so.
Yeah,
I did too.
So
cautious as a freshman is honestly not a terrible thing to be.
Yeah, I had to really think it through. But what it does, and again, coming from local government, I'm always nervous when, here we are, we're dealing with another local issue at the state level. Now it's on the state to, provide whatever means necessary to ensure that Missourians are safe in St. Louis. And that's a tall task, I think, to be able to do that from this location into local communities. But it was necessary, for people to do it. Independence, they still do real police work in Independence. They'll chase you. They will arrest you. They will do what it takes to keep our community safe. And I've always appreciated that with Chief Dustman and his command team. They do a good job, and the results. I mean, you can see the fruit of that, because the crime stats, you see it, they're high. That's because they're doing police work.
Yeah.
So when you're making arrests, you're always going to see that uptick. When stats are low, something's missing. And so Independence, I think, gets beat up a lot. But I'm proud of them. They do real police work.
Yeah. No, it always is something. Obviously, Independence has had kind of a rough history for the past few years, whether it be drugs or crime and stuff. And I think that they've done everything they absolutely can to help address those issues. But I know that there's obviously a lot of stuff that Independence feels like they need to address over time, whether it be the property tax issue like we talked about, or crime. But what... obviously, Mike comes from the Sugar Creek area, but he's still an Independence boy at heart. But do you think there's anything down the line that Independence or Jackson County as a whole, whether it be property taxes or crime or something like that, do you think there's something that should be addressed in the legislature at some point, like as Jackson County reps? Do you think there's something that you guys are all thinking of that might be?
I'll just say, we have got to make an investment in our infrastructure.
Yep.
Independence has the luxury of having its own utility, but it's dated, and it needs investment, and they've got to make that hard decision to do that. If you're going to attract industry, manufacturing, the baseload demands to attract that capital investment are getting higher and higher and higher. And that's not just for Independence or Jackson County, it's across the state. And so I think we've neglected our infrastructure for far too long. And I want my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and generations of Missourians to have a place that can provide that base load to make sure that our economy is strong, jobs are good, they're the right kind of jobs for our state, and people are working and they can raise their families and send them to school and go on vacation and all the things we like to do in Missouri. Enjoy our lakes. Yeah.
Independence does have an up though, because we can walk around downtown Independence, unlike St. Louis. Same thing with Kansas City too.
You just have to do it before like 8 o'clock, because it's a ghost town after 8 o'clock.
We also have the benefit in Independence of having Santa Calagon Days, which is if you've never been to Santa Calagon Days,
come.
Please come.
Best turkey legs in the state.
And I don't know, do they still have that really good root beer they used to make?
They have a root beer.
The
guy you're talking
Maybe
about stopped coming, I think it was 2 years ago. He retired.
I remember that. That was a really good one.
Right.
But if you have, if you're in the area and you want to do some of the best people watching you'll ever have in your life, Santa Calagon Days is the best thing to go to for that.
Holy cow.
But Independence, I mean, it's just it really is a wonderful place. Growing up was fantastic, having to be in Independence. I mean, obviously as a kid, you don't kind of appreciate the more historical aspect of Independence, whether it be like the old courthouse or the Truman House or the library.
Right.
Obviously I was a nerd as a kid, so I did kind of enjoy that.
You think about growing up?
Yeah. I really do want to go back to the library because I heard they did the remodeling recently.
Just there last Thursday with the
Yeah, you were
Lieutenant
with
Governor.
Senator Nicola, and who else was it?
Lieutenant Governor.
Lieutenant Governor, yeah. And Truman is buried there with Bess, isn't he?
Yeah, and their daughter and son-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really, if you have, we need to like go on like a tour of selling
Yeah,
Independence
we
to
should,
people.
yeah.
I'd love to do that because not only can you just do so much history, obviously, you've got the jail that held Jesse Jackson, or not Jesse Jackson.
Jesse Jackson. I don't think.
Jesse James.
I mean, I'm sure he was in jail
Can
too.
we edit that out?
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
Jesse James and
Jesse Jackson.
you got.
You haven't outgrown nerd, right? That's right. You just went back.
I may not have paid attention that day in class.
Yeah.
But you've got that. You got the Truman House, all that kind of stuff. It really is just it is fantastic, to be honest. I love the square. There really isn't another. There might be another place like it in Missouri, but to me, there's no other place like the Independence Square in Missouri.
Well, we're a little biased.
Yeah,
Right?
we are.
Yeah,
We
I mean,
are.
There's the people that were born and raised and live in Independence, and then there's everybody else that wants to be.
That's fair.
That's the way I see it.
That is
So,
true.
yeah, but
But-
we like our hometown. I love Sugar Creek. I love Independence. I love they're good neighbors.
Yeah.
And they do work hard to maintain that relationship. So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you go to Independence, you gotta have Square Pizza, obviously.
Mugs up.
Mugs up, yeah.
Yeah.
Those
Clinton's.
are great.
Yeah.
Oh, Clinton's. Clinton's actually does have really good ice cream, despite like just being kind of like seen as a historical site to some people.
Yeah.
It actually is really good ice cream. But when you guys come up here, and obviously Mike, you have your lovely wife Kana, and obviously Will, you got your lovely wife. When you guys come up here, where do you put them out usually?
Where do I what?
Where do you usually put them up at?
There's a right answer to this.
There's a right answer to it.
What is the right answer?
Maybe Will knows.
Look
Oh,
over
okay.
there.
Courtyard by Marriott.
Kelton, put down what Mike is not coming back next time.
That's right. No, I love the Courtyard. I just, I love the Courtyard by Marriott for all you Marriott folks. And yeah, I wish the state would negotiate something with them so we could stay there.
Yeah.
Although, the beautiful Baymont is, it's got a nice bed, so I'm good. That's where I stay.
We'll edit that part out, Kelton.
And the Jesse Jackson one too. Yeah. Oh,
But
poor Kelton.
and then obviously we want to thank the wonderful people over at Courtyard by Marriott and the amazing people over at United Fiber, the greatest rural broadband you can get. But thank you so much for joining us today. I'm honestly, I love having Jackson County people on, and the more I can, the better. But it truly is great. Please, if you've never been to Independence, which I guarantee you most people have who are watching this, but if you haven't, please go. It is a fantastic city with fantastic people. Maybe don't talk to all the people in Independence, but you can watch. You can watch them. But thank you so much for joining us today. We will see you next Monday. Me and Scott will be on to discuss some important Senate races.